Hi, everybody. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes, just giving people to get off their previous calls and jump on here. But just hang tight with us and we'll be right back with you. Thanks. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today for our Happy St. Patches Day webinar on our superior endpoint management product, Bacon. And we're going to go through a few things, as you can see on the agenda. We're going to do intros, high-level overview, real-world customers and solutions that we have out there. We're also going to do some new feature preview today, which is very exciting. We're about to drop version 4.2, so we're going to show you what's coming there. That's literally just weeks away. And then a couple months down the road, another major version, 4.5, is coming out. And that has some really exciting new features like third-party patching. So we're going to be talking about that and showing off the very basic bare bones of it, so you see we're really making it and how exciting it's going to be. And with that, why don't we jump into it, David, and start to do some intros here so people know who we are. First things first, I'm John Marcato. I'm one of the co-founders of Bacon Unlimited and the CTO. And joining me today is the stupendous, most fabulous presenter out there, Dave Adekoya, one of our senior engineers. So thanks for joining me, Dave.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. So with that, why don't we keep moving forward here? I love getting through kind of these basic housekeeping things first, because when it comes right down to it, we want to have as much time to show you the real software and kind of what it does and how it can help you. So in a moment here, I'm going to give a quick overview of what the software is, just to get you oriented, and then Dave's going to jump into the demo. Before I do that, though, I do want to get these housekeeping items covered. So please do ask questions. You'll notice if you're looking at the GoToWebinar little bar there, there's a little thing called questions. You can enter any questions you want in there. We have people in the background answering them live, some of our engineers. So please do pop in there and ask questions as we go. In addition, we're going to be asking you a couple of questions, real easy webinar polls here in a second. And lastly, if you stay till the end, which we would greatly appreciate, and fill out our survey, that helps us do better and better webinars. It also helps us improve the product. And for you, you get an awesome Bacon Flavor Force t-shirt. They're really soft, high quality t-shirts. I really recommend getting one. So hopefully you can stay for the whole thing. With that said, we can jump ahead here. I'm just going to mention, if you haven't seen our site before, we do have a very well populated YouTube channel called with what we call Bacon Bits on it. Those are little clip videos. They can be used to understand the product better, but a lot of people, like our existing customers, use them for training as well. And we populate that with new videos every week, kind of all the time. So I think there's 100 and some odd up there, and we update them regularly. So please do go check those out if you think this could be a good fit for you and you're trying to find out some specifics. We also urge you to set up a one-on-one demo. We're all very happy here to run you through the software and talk about how it applies to solving your specific tech and business challenges. But with that said, I think we can move on and maybe jump into a couple of polls. So Lane, if you'd be so kind to launch the first poll, we'll let everybody answer that. And this will help us steer the conversation a little bit today. Make sure we get you everything you want. Which features are you most interested in seeing? Endpoint remote control, patching, profiles and policy management, or monitors? And we'll let that sit up there for a sec. And seeing a fairly even spread, although remote control seems to be winning today. So far in the lead with 30%, 29% now, matched with patching. Oh, now they're all evened up. Everybody's trying to even it out. Monitoring's at the bottom with 18%. Patching's taking the lead with 30%.
Patching's always a good one.
It is always a good one, especially when we're talking about third-party patching as well. So, all right, so clearly patching is the winner there, but pretty close seconds with remote control and profiles. Monitoring lagging behind, Dave. So if that gives you any indication on focus, I think that's good. Lane, if you want to launch the second poll, we'll get that out of the way and then jump into the description. All right, which of the following describes your top business challenges? Check all that apply. Patching all systems, maintaining and managing security concerns, having the correct tools to work efficiently, keeping up to date on ways to keep our business competitive. Patching all systems, pretty huge, but also maintaining security. And you know what? These have been really growing in these webinars. As we've been showing new versions and new features in our webinars, we've found people are really having more and more trouble with these things, and I certainly can relate. That's actually one of the reasons why we made this tool starting 5 years ago. Yeah, wow. Yeah, patching and maintaining security are just blowing everything else out of the water. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, Dave, I think we know kind of what people are interested in there, and I'm going to start it off here by just going over what everybody's seeing here on the screen from a concept level, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I think a lot of people kind of know what they're doing here, but I want to make sure that those who don't are caught up. So Bacon is an endpoint management system. It crosses over into a few other industry sectors. So if you're doing things like mobile device management, unified endpoint management, or remote management and monitoring, RMM, all of those things are related, but they often come with different focuses. Bacon was designed to be able to fill in all of those ways, but we still have some growing to do in certain edge cases and things. So, we do want to make sure you know what all of our features are. It's pretty broad at this point, but we continue to make new things at a very rapid rate. We did a sort of industry analysis. We found that our competitors, on average, sort of the people that have been around for a while, they do a release of what we call a major release once every 18 months. We're averaging 4 major releases per year. So that's why we've advanced so quickly and have all these great features. But we want to keep making them better. We want your ideas. We do get a lot of great ideas from our existing customers and also prospects. So I can't tell you how much I value what any of you out there would love to see in the software. I would love to give it to you, and it's probably something that would help me too. So as you hear more about this, very interested to get people's thoughts. So what is Bacon? Okay, it's an endpoint manager. I said that. What else does it do? Well, it does all of those things that you would care about when you have to take care of endpoints. It's going to give you great visibility. It's going to give you control, and it's going to give you automation. Those are the concepts. Now, how does it do that? Well, one, it does have remote control. So the ability to remote control from anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world, someone's CLI in their computer, to see the file system in sort of that nice manila folders view and be able to manipulate it. The ability to get to the screen and help someone, like in a help desk type situation where they can see you moving the mouse around, they know you're on there, you can talk to them through a chat, or maybe you're on the phone with them. We have built-in chat, but maybe you have direct other ways of chatting as well. But a lot of tools in remote control. David's going to show that off. Really, really helpful. But a lot of times you don't want to do everything just connecting to one machine, and you need really great automation and control in a sort of more broad sense, what a lot of people would refer to as configuration management. And that's really where Bacon started, and it is one of our richest areas. So things like patching or things like installing software, whether they be complex multi-file installers or simple installers, you're going to find that it's super easy to do this in Bacon. You're also going to find that it is more flexible and built more for that sort of enterprise problem, right? I need to install software on Mac, but also on Linux and Windows. I need to be able to install a huge package with 9 files in it, and I have trouble doing that on other systems. These are the kinds of problems people come to us with and are very, very happy with the net result. We also can control every single setting on your machine and monitor the success of controlling it. So imagine changing the firewall rules on a computer or installing a specific version of a specific piece of software and being able to do that to thousands of machines at a time and knowing if any of them don't end up the way you want right now at the time you're running the job or over time if they come out of compliance. We can see all of those things. So some really, really great stuff inside of Bacon. One of the big principles we went with from the beginning was doing something that was modern and cross-platform. So the tool was built from the ground up to be ultra secure. It was built to be able to work from anywhere. It was built to be able to work with Mac and Linux and Windows equally. So all of the features have very, very close parity. And it was also meant to be expandable and flexible. So with all of those things in mind, I just also want to say that there is a huge emphasis on security. I kind of just breezed over that quickly. But Bacon was designed originally to work in environments that have government regulations that are very, very strict. And in the media industry where people are making movies and television, they don't want to lose a $100 million movie, which is something that happened some years ago, if you've ever heard about the Sony hack. And so with that in mind, we look at a lot of security things so we can monitor your antivirus and EDR tools. We can see if you're encrypted. We can store your encryption keys automatically. We can store all kinds of secrets and cool things. So a lot of great functions for security, but also designed and tested to be very secure itself, which has unfortunately been a problem for certain people in this industry. So we didn't want to be involved with any of that, so we built our own tool and then turned it into a company, and people seem to be very happy about it. So we hope you're very happy with it. We hope that what you see today makes sense to you, and we look forward to talking to you about it. And with that, Dave, if you're ready, I'll hand it over to you to show off the software itself.
Yep, I'm all set.
Thanks, man.
All right, so for this demo portion, we're going to do is we're going to go through our current version of Bacon and kind of walk down the nav bar as I typically do. This is going to be an abridged version of what we typically do in a demo. So there's a lot more we can go into, and we'd be happy to over demos or additional conversations after this. Once we walk through the current product, we'll then move on to our customer testimonials. And then after that, we have a little bit of like a feature peek. So definitely stick around after testimonials so you can see those extra features that we're going to be like demoing over there as well. So getting started here, this is the overview page. This is what you're going to see once you log into Bacon, and it has a couple things that are pretty useful for us. First off, we have alerts. This will show you which of your alerts that you've configured are currently triggered. The ones in red here are critical alerts versus these purple ones are profiles. And we'll kind of get into how profiles work, but in short, you're able to set configurations in Bacon, and you can also alert on if that configuration is being met or if all of your endpoints are in compliance, let's say. Next up, we have endpoints, and this will show you which of your endpoints are online versus offline. One thing to note here is that whenever you have these indicators, if you click on them, it'll lead you to that specific table with the filter for the one that you've clicked on already made for you. So here I'm looking at all the disconnected endpoints because I clicked on this little disconnected sliver right there. Next up, we have distribution. So what operating systems are you running Bacon on? Here we have a very CentOS heavy environment because it's a demo server. But you can see we have cross-platform support, so Windows, Mac OS, and then various flavors of Linux, just to name a couple, Debian, Ubuntu, CentOS, Red Hat, Rocky, Alma, a lot of the big flavors you're going to see in an enterprise. Moving forward, we have patches. So this will show you how many patch jobs you can deploy in your environment. So here I have 739 packages between all of my OSs, all of my CentOS devices, I should say, that can be deployed. And even here we can see we have 22 Windows patches that can be deployed to maybe one device or all my Windows devices. We'll actually see that in a little bit when we get down to that portion on patching. Next up, we have antivirus protection. So this is going to allow you to specify your AV or AVs. You can have multiple in here. You can just specify those by service, and Bacon can track when those are running on your endpoints. So here we have one endpoint unprotected and 107 that are protected. Next up, similar security focus, encrypted hard drives. Bacon's going to look at all the drives that you have on your machines, and it's going to have the encrypted hard drives contribute to this number here. So it's not if like a device has one encrypted hard drive, it's fully encrypted. We're counting it by drive. So here is 787 drives total, of which none in our virtual environment are encrypted. Let's take a look at monitoring. And it was lowest on the poll, so we'll go over it quickly, but I do like to give it at least a little bit of attention. So in Bacon, you're able to configure monitors, or you're able to configure rules, and those rules can cover things like performance indicators, so CPU usage, memory usage, hard drive usage, but also things that are useful for patching. You know, how old is the oldest patch in this machine? Maybe it's only a couple days old. That's a pretty good metric. Or how many patches does this machine have available? In addition to that, like I said before, our profile alerts are also help you report back on things like, is this registry key set? Do these devices have the proper software? And all these can be then exported or sent out of the system either through email to your team, to your ticketing system, or if you're using Jira or Autotask, we have direct integration there over API to both open and close tickets. Once your alerts are triggered, or your rules are triggered, it'll generate an alert. That's what we're seeing here, so you can easily dismiss this from the console. It gives you an idea of what the endpoint was that triggered it, the description of the alert, and then you can actually have a quick link back to that specific rule so you can go back and look at the settings on there. And then lastly, if you have static displays in the office, we also have a knock dashboard. And so this allows you to get just a visual indicator of the health of your environment. And you can change what's showing on here. You also have the option of like changing columns and having it continuously scroll through all of your endpoints. And for people using a PC, this is actually something you can click on too. You'll find we like to click on stuff in Bacon. Most things you can mouse over can be clicked on. So in this case, if I click on Azkaban Legal, it's going to take me over to that individual device detail page. So on it, let's cover how we handle endpoints in Bacon. So I'll remove my filter here from the earlier one. So endpoints are going to be located on this table in Bacon. We pull back a lot of different data points. Every time I do this demo, this list gets a little bit longer and I have to like scroll down. But some ones I highlight here are going to be things like IP address, current user, and serial number. I really like the serial number one because I've written scripts to pull this manually, and it's great to have this record in the computer is offline, but you still need that number. So here's a lot of different data points. One nice thing to mention too is we also have integration with IT Glue. So we're able to take the information in this table and export it over to that platform as well. Now, before we move too far, I do like to highlight the quick search and filter features. So our quick search is going to allow you to search through every column we have here. So if I type in like part of my IP address, say 192.168.4, it's going to technically look through every single column to find that IP address, but here it's going to, of course, match on IP. I can do this by part of the host name. If I say demo, it'll pick up our demo Ubuntu machine, maybe a couple other ones here. And that's because it's searching again through every single thing. I think some of these may be in a group called demo, and that's why we're seeing them here. So it's one of the fields further off in the table here. So I can see we pull back a lot of different data points on all these machines. But for this, let's look at what an individual endpoint page looks like. So I'll jump on demo in 10. And so we see a couple things. We have 8 tiles up here, and these are going to give you different levels of more in-depth information. So here we have system, pretty similar to what we see in the endpoint table with a little bit more detail. We can see things like utilized RAM versus RAM capacity or RAM available. We have things like the actual serial number along with if it's a physical or virtual machine and the CPU model, right? If we keep going here, we can see the different disks and also you see recovery keys here. We're able to pull back keys from BitLocker or File Vault. All those encryption keys can be escrowed here for you as well, so you have a record of them in Bacon. Walking through here, we can see we have network card information and if it's actually active. Probably most important one here is going to be IP address, if not MAC address, depending on what you're looking for. We can see different policies. So here we have one profile deployed to set Bacon wallpaper. And we can also see what kind of groups this machine is in, both dynamic and static groups, which I'll cover in just a moment. We also have the ability to see software. So what software is installed on this device, and more importantly, which other devices have that same software and version. Here we can see patching, which I'm going to go over this over in the patching section on the left-hand side here. But do keep in mind that the same process you use for patching one machine can be used to patch, 200 machines. We try to keep those UIs the same so you can kind of work in whatever context you need. Next up, again, services. Here's where we recommend you go through and mark services as AV. You can see here I have Windows search. That's clearly not AV, but for the purpose of a demo and making that graph go up, it's good enough. And here, I'm going to just use our filter feature to search for everything that could be AV on this machine based on what we defined in Bacon. It's as easy as clicking mark or unmark as AV here. That'll set it for everybody. And lastly, we have logs. So this shows you all the different jobs this machine was involved in some form. It just gives you a quick reference to go open those and see what's going on with the machine. So before we get too far from the endpoint page, let's go over our remote. So this is a separate application that you can install from Bacon. So it doesn't have to be installed just because you have the agent. And this allows you to remote onto the screen for the user. I think we're mostly familiar with this in the land of IT, but we have some neat tricks up our sleeve as well. So we have our standard method of entering keyboard shortcuts. As John mentioned, I believe we have a chat feature as well. So if you click this, it'll open a new screen for you and a screen inside their session, the chat back and forth. And then we also have the option of like a little mini task manager. So we're able to come over here and actually stop processes, as well as start, stop, restart services on the machine, all without having to log in. As you see, I'm just here on the login screen. Next up, the shell is going to be my personal favorite. So the shell allows you to log into the backend console of the machine running a system. The really nice thing here is that this is also a persistent session. So as I go through stuff, I can say open a PowerShell, I can set a variable, and then pull back the value of that variable. Some applications I've used for similar things like what Bacon does will send a command and then give you a result and kill the session. This allows you to actually have an interactive session here. Again, completely invisible to the user. You can get work done as though you actually have the shell open. And of course, we also have things like copy and paste. You can just very easily copy this, then paste it back in, that kind of thing. Next up, we have file system, and this allows you to see the file system of the user's computer. You can download things, upload things, make folders. And this is going to be very handy for just very quick use cases of maybe I want to upload a specific executable, then go over to shell and run that executable, right? So this allows you to kind of work in the background and get a lot of work done without a lot of effort, especially if these devices are off of your LAN in the office. Bacon's not going to be too picky about the network you're on. Because we established a secure tunnel back and forth between the server and the endpoint, we can treat every endpoint as though it's reachable when it is, and we don't have to worry about all those considerations. So next up, let's go over groups. So earlier I mentioned we have static and dynamic groups. Static groups are going to be exactly what you think. Our static groups are going to be comprised of endpoints that you define manually, and then it stays that way until you change it. Dynamic groups allow you to use our endpoints table and filter on certain criteria. So here we can see if the device is online and if it has antivirus protection equal to false. So this is that one device we saw on the overview page that's missing AV. We can make a group for that. And so it makes it very easy to track different things by just looking at the number of endpoints in this specific group. As far as the rest of the use case here, you can use groups to push out monitors, you can install software, patch with these groups, and of course, apply profiles with these groups. Next up, we have MDM devices. I don't have any MDM in our demo for today, but this is going to cover Mac OS and Apple TVs and iOS devices. So that's how we do our MDM here. If you'd like more info, again, we've done a couple webinars in the past about it. We have some Bacon Bits videos, and of course, we'd be happy to give you demos over a meeting as well. Next up on the software side, this will give you a list of software installed on the machine. We kind of saw this a little bit whenever we were going through the individual endpoints side of things. We tend to, again, reuse that same UI element so everything's still familiar. It's very quick to pick up how Bacon works and to get used to using it because we make it as easy as possible. So here we're looking at software for all devices. If we had an Apple TV or an iPad in there, this would also show up in this table as well with the other ones. So usually I recommend filtering by platform just to keep things easily readable. And also keep in mind that for most tables in Bacon, I say arguably all tables in Bacon, you can also export this data as well. And so it can export this exact table you're looking at, however you filtered it, into an XLSX file for you as well. Looking at services is going to be very similar again to what we saw last time, where we can see the services. And like I said before, you can use this menu to mark any service you like as AV to contribute to that monitor in the overview page. Next up, let's go over patching. So I'm gonna get John's help for a little bit of this. Our patching in Bacon is pretty simple. So what we do is we reach out to the endpoints, get an entire list of how or what patch they need available, and then pull it into a table for you. I'm filtering this based on Windows patches. We got a ton of CentOS patches in there, as you can see. So just to cut down the visual noise, we'll just apply that filter again. And so here, let's take a look at what we see in a patch detail. So we can see the actual patch name, in this case for Microsoft, along with the associated KB and then the unique identifier. We also pull in the categories for Microsoft. So in this case, it's an update for Server 2019, along with the description and if it does or does not require reboot. And then right below this, you can see which endpoints actually need that patch. So let's go over quickly how we would patch a device in Bacon. For this, I'll select all these patches. And here we see the patches we selected, along with, again, if it does or does not require reboot. That's usually pretty important. Then we have our endpoints here. Bacon is only going to show you the endpoints that need at least one of these patches. So even if we had 200 Windows devices, we may only see 9 in this list. So we'll select which endpoints we want to push to. Then we have our scheduling time. So we can install patches right away. What this means is it'll push the job out to everybody, whether you're online or not. If you're offline, you'll just simply fail the job. If you're online, of course, you'll get the patch. If we use run when connected, this will allow you to patch when everyone's online, and if you're not online, it'll queue the job up for you until we see you next time. Then you'll get the patch once you log back in and Bacon sees you. For scheduled time, it's exactly what you think. We can pick a date and a time frame here, and then local to the machine's time zone, it'll execute that patch job. And lastly, we have relentless mode. Now, John, I know you like to explain this one, and you do a much better job than me, so would you mind giving us a walkthrough here?
Happy to do so, and thank you, Dave. So relentless mode was recommended by customers about 3 years ago, and essentially they said, you know, we work on approval windows for being able to do outages. So they were mostly talking about servers in this particular case. Said like on Saturday night or on Sunday morning or whatever their time window was, I think it was actually Sunday morning, like from 1 a.m. until 6 a.m. we can reboot things and do patching and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, well, we have certainly had a scheduled time to start at that point, but we didn't have a way to force a stop. And so we created relentless mode for that, and also for another issue, which is actually what makes it relentless, which is the ability for the job to exist beyond a reboot. And one of the problems that people were running into was they'd make time to patch, and they would run the job, and then they'd have to go run more jobs after. So unless they were using something like automatic updates from Windows, which they didn't want to do, they wanted on Windows, on Mac, on Linux, they wanted to run the exact patches they wanted to run on the exact machines they wanted to run in a specific window of time. And if those patches required more than one reboot, they wanted that to continue and happen as designed. So Bacon has the ability to do that with relentless mode. So if you set a job like Dave was just showing, and you put that window in, as long as it doesn't run out of time, let's say you give it 5 hours and only needs 4, that's going to be great. And we've seen new customers that had a big backlog of patches clear through machines that had 150, 200, even 250 patches waiting to be installed in a single weekend without having to restart anything manually, right? With no intervention, essentially. And it patched and it rebooted and patched and rebooted. And just to stick onto something you said, Dave, you said, you know, this thing is pretty smart, right? It knows if your machine needs patches. Well, it actually knows a lot more than that. It knows whether or not what the order should be to do reboots and patches. It knows what patches are already on your system. It will never try to install a patch. If you choose a whole clump of patches to get installed against a whole clump of machines, it'll never try to install a patch that a machine doesn't need or anything like that. And it will always do it in what they call the most desired order. So there's a lot of metadata built into all the different patching systems from Apple, Ubuntu, from Microsoft's different operating systems Server 2016 or Windows 10 XYZ, version. All of those things have all of this metadata built in. And the one thing that all of these the software makers told us, and also pretty explicitly outlined in their development kits, is don't break the stuff that we build, just use it to make the patching work better. So that's how we've designed our patching system. And so we rarely have any problems here unless the machine is corrupted out or has an issue or something. But generally, this patching is going to work very flawlessly. It's going to do a lot of the thinking for you. And you just have to decide what you want to patch and when, and you'll be all set. So that was a little bit more than just explaining relentless mode, Dave. So sorry I went a little long there, but I hope that was helpful.
No, it was great. No worries. All right, so yeah, let's take a quick look at how patching works in Bacon. Again, there's a lot of ways to crack an egg. We have other methods too, but this is the main one here. So next up, let's cover files and bundles. So files are exactly what you think it is. This is where you can upload files into Bacon so you can deploy those to your machines or use these files, scripts, applications, and states. So very simple, have a drag and drop interface down here, or you can click here and open up your file explorer. And then you can actually deploy files straight from here. So if it's a single file installer, like this Git installer here, we can easily go to Actions and Deploy. It's going to look a little bit similar to the patching window in just a moment. So we'll select our platform. In this case, it's an executable. We'll pick Windows. Then we're going to choose Launcher here. This means that Bacon's going to put the file on the machine and also run it. If we don't choose Launcher, which could be useful for pushing out font files, let's say, then it'll just put the file in the folder you specify on this page. So here we can see all of our Windows endpoints. We can pick a couple. Then we see our installation location. So this is where you could change it to, C, Windows, fonts, like that, or just keep it as the C temp Bacon folder. And Bacon will make any directories it needs to as well. So here, if you don't have a temp or a Bacon folder, it'll make both those for you. Next up, we have run as. So what user do you want to run under? By default, we're going to do it as system, but in Windows, you can specify a username and password. And in Unix-based OSs, Mac OS, Linux, you can just specify the username, and it'll run as that user in context. We have executable flags. These can be things like, QS for like your, or like QN for your MSI installs, maybe a silent or like a license key. That's what goes in this one here, and you can just keep typing these in until you get your desired, setup scenario. The next up, we have our scheduled deploy time. It looks a lot similar to the one we just looked at, with the exception of relentless mode. Unfortunately, you can't install Chrome and reboot a machine through this UI. You could if you really want, but we're not going to make that too encouraged. So we can deploy immediately, again at a specific time, or run when connected. Now, when it comes to more complex installs, let's say we wanted to do an Office install with the customization XML. Those are going to be pulled into bundles. So we're able to select multiple files and pull those into a bundle, which means Bacon will then put all of these files on the machine for you. So you don't have to worry about like we're having an unzip script and all this kind of stuff. It's not necessary. We kind of make it as easy as possible. So if I look at this bundle, you can see I have my Office installer selected as the launcher. This is a script. And that script is just going to call this XML and this setup executable. You can actually edit these live in Bacon too by just going to Actions and Edit here. So if you had to make some changes, it'll give you like a plain text editor with some syntax highlighting. Next up, we're going to look at profiles and states. These are my favorite. I love giving training on these and making these because they're so flexible. These are going to allow you to set registry keys, run scripts. You can set, network card information, really anything you need. Also, local GPOs, you can set those too, for instance, for Windows Update. Let's actually look for update here. So here you can configure automatic update. This is also what you'd see if you were like editing files as this little text editor here. So here we're able to configure automatic updates to run on a specific day at a specific time on, it looks like the 4th week of the month. So very specific stuff there. Now, all these states can do things like installing software or installing configurations, turning on services, setting registry keys. John mentioned earlier firewalls. You can actually control your firewall with your respective OS on here too. So I did a Bacon Bits video on controlling Windows, Mac OS, and I believe firewall on Ubuntu using IP tables. And that was all 3 states. So this can be very flexible and very powerful. And this is, again, something you can alert on. So you can say, I want all of my machines to have this firewall config, or even to just have all of the firewalls enabled in the case of Windows. And if it's found not to, then you can have an alert sent to your team so you can go investigate why that was the case. Or you can also have Bacon turn the service back on as well. So once you have your group of states, you'll put them into profiles. Profiles are just a collection of states, and this will allow you to run those states on the machines at an interval. So for the Ubuntu firewall one here, it's going to run every hour on the group I deploy it to make sure that all those have this IP tables configuration that I set. So you can see this is very powerful, but also allows for automation. In our own organization, we use this for all of our laptop deployments. We get a brand new laptop, connect to Bacon, and then we have states to install all the baseline software we need, which saves us a ton of time. So next up, let's look at logging. Before we get too far, we have the ability to run states on demand. So we can actually come here and just do a run now. Again, that's going to be useful for things like machine deployment because I don't want to plug a laptop in and wait an hour, and I can plug a laptop in, click the button, and wait, 15 minutes. So most actions you're going to do in Bacon are going to be logged in one of these two here. As you can see, as I walk through the UI, it's logging all of my activity. So I had a remote session over here. I was halfway through doing a bundle deployment. All that kind of stuff is going to be logged, along with like connections from devices. On the next one for the jobs table, all the stuff that Bacon's doing in the background automatically is also logged. So we can see the state of our jobs, what we're pushing out, what the result was here. It's just our profile we were looking at earlier. This is going to set wallpaper by pushing it to the machine and then setting it, I think, via GPO in that state. Then just to cover as much as we can here, so we also have pretty extensive RBAC support, so you're able to define users and roles, so you can control what users can influence different groups of endpoints. And again, those can still be dynamic groups. Say you've got desktop technicians that have the option of patching and logging into sites, only the ones that they work at. You can set that in roles here. And you can have a user with multiple roles, maybe one just for patching, one just for remoting, or maybe it's split up by office location, right? Those are all great use cases for dynamic groups. As well, we also have integration with on-prem Active Directory via LDAP and two-factors. So again, kind of keeping that security angle, Bacon's a very powerful console. It has access to everything the machine has access to, and you want to make sure you keep it secured. Lastly, let's go over help. So with every copy of Bacon, we have the product documentation built in specific to your version. So here we have version 4.1, as well as we have an option here to create support tickets and also quick links to our various community parts. So here we have a Discord server where you can join, ask questions, get help with Bacon, as well as Bacon Bits videos I've mentioned a few times. We have this YouTube channel here. This gives you bite-sized pieces of content, usually like 5 minutes or less. You can go there and watch how to do different things in Bacon or learn about new features as we release them. Other than that, we also have our support channel. So, our support email, the option to go to our Jira portal, or even state and script templates that we have in our public GitHub repository. And lastly, of course, which we're going to cover in just a moment, actually, we have the ability to create a ticket in the product as well. So if you set up your SMTP for sending outbound email, then you can actually just have it give us a ticket here. It includes a bunch of helpful information for support. So that's kind of the overview of the current version of Bacon. John, what do you say we move over to our customer testimonials?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that and just so people on the webinar can go check out some real customer experiences. This is our website, and if you go there, you'll see that we've posted some of our case studies. And case studies are interviews that we have with customers. I think the basic criteria is you have to be a customer for at least 6 months, just so we know you have really had a chance to dig into it. And then you have to agree, right? You have to say you really like it, and there wouldn't be much reason to ask you for a testimonial if not. So the main thing you can probably imagine we do is try to make very, very happy customers. I think we've been really successful in that. So this is one example of those, but there are many up there you can read. This is about a customer called System Source. System Source is a really good one to talk about. It's a pretty new testimonial or case study. Basically, they have some really important security concerns where their biggest customer is the government, and they have to follow the CMMC guidelines, and so they've got to become NIST 800. I think, what is it, 271, Dave? And there are just a huge list of controls. And over 200 of their controls are endpoint related, and they're able to control all of those using Bacon. But In addition to that, they talk a lot about being able to save about 40 hours a week on regular repetitive tasks like patching and rolling out the right software to the right machines and monitoring health and all these things that were causing them a lot of disruption and stopping them from being able to implement some of these big projects like becoming compliant with NIST and so forth. So we were really grateful for their feedback. We worked a lot with them during the process just to help them figure out how to make all the settings and get it the way they want. But they made a great comment, which was, we like the fact that we're not just ready for an audit, but that we actually could be ready for an audit anytime, because the settings in Bacon are not a one-day sort of audit scan. They are an ongoing way of managing keeping things in this state, this secure state, as Dave was kind of showing the profiles, but also all of the other elements, right? The ability to just visibly look at how healthy systems are and be really aware when things come out of the state of compliance you want them to stay in. So we're really grateful to them for offering up to do a case study. It was actually, they came to us and said like, hey, if you actually want to do a commercial on our showroom floor, we would love that or something. And we were like, wow, how about start with a case study, right? And we did this one and it was really positive. But I think a lot of people talked at the beginning in the polls about, or they didn't talk, but they voted about security and patching, and that was big part for these guys. So I thought that would be a good case study to bring up. And with that, feel free to read any of those, and certainly, many of these customers also make themselves available to give, some confidence to some new onboarding customers that this is a great platform. And they also give some great ideas, I think. So we try to hold some chat events, but also can make people available to talk to. So with that, Dave, I think with the amount of time we've got left, we should really jump into new features. I think that's exciting for people of the things that are coming out here in the next couple of weeks, and then in the next couple of months with some of the others. So why don't you run through kind of the stuff that's coming out here in 4.2, and then we'll jump into the 4.5 stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, so for features for 4.2, got a couple things. So let's start off with a new field. So we've recently added a build version to our endpoints table. This is going to allow you to see the specific version and do some better operations whenever you're doing filtering. So here we can see, for instance, Ubuntu 20.10, but you kind of can't do anything with a string field like this. You can't say greater than or less than or anything like that easily. The build version allows you to do that. So here I'm now able to go here, select build version, and I get more than just equal to or contains. I can now do equal to or greater than, equal to or less than, and specify versions this way. In addition, we've also updated, yeah, it's actually pretty useful. It's one of those things like, oh man, I wish we had that, but now we do. So in addition, we've also changed how our tables work in the system. On the last demo that we were seeing in the prod environment, you saw how we were able to get to the bottom of the table, and then we had a little selector here for pages. Now we actually just have a continuous scrolling table. So this will just dynamically load in, as long as you scroll, all of your, in this case, software rows as you keep going, right? And we've got 5,000 items, not 5,000 items worth of time, but I'm sure you get the idea. It's gonna be a much smoother experience versus the previous page layout that we had before. In addition, we also have some updates on the backend side of things. So John usually explains one a little bit better than I do as far as how the job system works and the new features we built in. Want to give him a quick once over?
Yeah, sure. So we had this health dashboard before where all of our sub-containers live, and our containers essentially represent like what a service would be, right, on a system. And they don't become unhealthy very often, but sometimes you want to come in here and restart them all, or restart one because it's not behaving the way you think it should. So we have that health dashboard and want to give that out to customers to be able to use. That's been there for a while. But we noticed there was one other little glitch that could happen on occasion. Again, very rare, but it was this queuing problem. So if you happen to undersize your system, we do give a guideline for that, but sometimes people accidentally, do something a little wild and make something that runs a million jobs or something like that. You can come in here and clear out the queues, and we've broken them out. The queues are a few there, and if you can go up to actions, Dave, people can see that you can go and clear any of the different queues. So pretty rare to see these fill up, but if it does, you have the ability to get yourself righted really quickly. we were finding that we would log in. This would probably happen once every couple of months. We would log into someone's system and we would find, hey, your system is about half the size of the recommended, and your job queue is filling up, and it's kind of slowing down the works and making you feel like the system is sluggish. Let's clear the queue, and then you can watch as it kind of picks up there. We should really, go to 4 CPUs and 16 gigs of RAM rather than 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM, kind of a thing. So that just really helped people get figured out with that. So that's those features. Dave, is there anything else from 4.2 you wanted to show off, or should we jump into the 4.5 ones real quick?
Last one's not actually visual. It's just simply that this from or in the product. Whenever you send out tickets from the system using that UI we looked at before, it's now going to include some of your logs from your server, which just helps support triage stuff for you faster. So not a super amazing feature I can put in the box, but at least in the support angle, we're very happy it's here, and you'll kind of see a quicker turnaround as a result.
It saves a lot of time on both sides, right? So if there happens to be a ticket, we're going to be able to triage it without having to call you back and then go look at the logs or something like that. So I think everyone will be a lot happier.
Yep, and just wrapping up 4.2 features here. So we've also made some improvements to how we do reporting for our patching. So here we have patching history. This is going to be the same as pulling the patching history from each device directly. So now you're able to look up specific KBs and see what devices have installed that patch. We know exactly when the patch was available to install. We even have metrics for when the patch was installed and how long it took, right? So if Windows isn't going to pull these into roll-up patches they typically do, we're able to see something like this patch took 78 days to get installed. Again, it's demo. Please don't judge us. It was on purpose, I promise. But this is a very useful metric to see how well you're keeping up with the patches in your environment. And again, just like all the other tables, we can use our filters and a quick search to search for, KBs, and that'll pull up multiple devices on this side if we're looking for, one specific KV. Because here we see we have like 2,000 items between all of our different endpoints in the system. So pretty extensive down to like individual endpoint levels. On the other side, we have compliance.
And exportable, right, Dave? Because all of our tables are exportable. So if you want to use that as a report to show that you got everything patched, it's really easy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, do keep in mind these tables can be exported. For a quicker visual indicator, here we have the compliance table. And this will give like a compliance score. So, how well are you patching this device versus what's available? So here I'm missing one patch. I'd say things above 90 are usually pretty good. This was probably a driver of some sort. But we can see what patches could be applied, what patches have been installed, and which ones haven't been installed, and even what patches were hidden. Right? So this is just a very quick, grab a pulse check of the patching in your environment. And then the history page allows you to get down deeper to look for patches that may need to be removed or when they've been installed, stuff like that. That's kind of it for 4.2 features. Now we have one in 4.5 you'd like to show off, John. Want to move on to that one?
Absolutely. This is an exciting one people have been asking for a while. This is just the bare bones of it, so don't judge us on the look and feel yet, but this is what is known as third-party or proactive third-party patching. So while we already had the ability to manually update packages using our repository, the ability to track them and then optionally track them and then optionally auto update them is something that people really wanted. So when it's not something that comes through your standard updates chain, a lot of times with Linux, it doesn't matter because if you're using apt or yum or something, you get all of the software that you use really coming through there for its updates. But when you use Apple or you use Windows, that's not always the case. And so you'll have something like Google Chrome or Firefox or Adobe Reader or countless other very common applications that you want to keep on the latest version, or at a bare minimum, you want to be aware that you're not on the latest version. And so that's what this feature is all about. We've made it extremely easy, as Dave's kind of showing the actions button. You can start by tracking one, and then you have the ability to monitor when machines have out-of-date versions of particular software, and that can be extremely helpful to know. But in addition, because that can actually be a security risk as well, and that's actually one of the main reasons people want to keep them updated. You can control all of that using profiles in terms of what goes to what level and so forth. So maybe you don't want to track, Firefox version 100, maybe version 101 comes out, but you actually don't want it to update. because you use a web app that needs to use Firefox version 100, right? So maybe that one you don't track, but then you say with Chrome, anybody who's using that, we need to make sure that it's the latest version for security reasons. Well, not only can you track it, but you can also auto update it. So some really good controls in there. And the next question that always comes up from everybody is, well, I've used some third-party patching software in the past, but they didn't always have all the software I use. And you know what? That's driven me crazy too. So we have a way that you can actually build and enter your own applications as well. And it's pretty easy, just a little form fill. And if you need help with it, that's part of Bacon's service. So we'll help you put your apps in there as well. So on our 250 list, you'll be able to add additional ones for yourself or maybe for everyone. And that's a really beneficial thing. So with that said, that's an exciting feature. The other one that's not in the UI yet, so I won't show it today, but I'll let you know it's coming, is Azure AD integration. The backend's all built for it. The UI will probably be up in the next week. And it's not all that exciting of a UI feature, but it does help a lot that you'll be able to authenticate into Bacon using single sign-on and things like that with Azure AD and also Okta shortly after. And a lot more things coming with that integration as well. So we're really excited about it. With that, Dave, I know we have a promo that we have to pop up there. For people who are really looking for an endpoint management here in the short term, you can get a free month for each 12 months that you purchase. So if you're buying a 3-year agreement, not only do you get the benefit of the really, really good pricing, which is that you get 3 years for the price of 2, you in addition would get 3 free months of licensing. So some really compelling stuff there coming from the CEO and the sales side of things, and want to make sure we mention that to anybody who's kind of in a rush to get a new solution. This could be really helpful in helping you sell it to management or whatever. So with that, lots of great things coming in Bacon, some things I can't even talk about because they're so secret spy. And Dave knows I'm just itching to talk about them, but I promised I wouldn't. And we've got some just amazing stuff on the horizon here, in addition to what we've talked about today. But with that said, we look forward to talking with you all, answering more of your questions and seeing how this would fit in your environment. I hope this was helpful, and we're going to give you the rest of the hour here to fill out the survey and make sure we get you a t-shirt. Thank you all so much for joining today. We wish you the best. Bye-bye.